If you think Isaiah 42 is a good prophecy for the topic of Muhammad in the Bible, wait till you hear Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. Now, in this video, I will be going into crazy detail on these prophecies. To begin with, Daniel is one of the most extraordinary prophets in the Old Testament. Exiled to Babylon by the tyrant King Nebuchadnezzar, God bestowed upon him wisdom and granted him dreams and apocalyptic visions of things to come. Those dreams and visions happen to be some of the most vivid and detailed in the entire Bible. As we are now going to examine, these dreams and visions are all interconnected and point to the emergence of the world-changing Ishmaelite Arabian prophet, Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace. First, we must analyze the chapter of Daniel 2. Daniel 2 informs us about a dream that greatly disturbed King Nebuchadnezzar. He was so troubled by the dream that he is said to have called upon his sorcerers, astrologers, in order to interpret the dream. When they failed to do so, the king became so angry and issued the order for them to all be executed. Upon hearing this, Prophet Daniel intervened and offered to explain the dream in order to spare the lives of the sorcerers and astrologers. King Nebuchadnezzar's dream is described as follows. Quote, "Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces and became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace, but the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth." That is a reference from Daniel chapter 2, verses 31 to 35. As you can see, we are clearly informed that King Nebuchadnezzar dreamt of a dazzling statue comprised of the materials of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay. Thanks to God's inspiration, Daniel was able to interpret the dream, which he explained as follows to King Nebuchadnezzar. Quote, "This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky. Wherever they live, he has made you ruler over them. You are the head of gold. After you, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours. Next, there will be a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, for iron breaks and smashes everything, and as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break these things. Just as you saw, the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom, yet it will have some strength of iron in it. Even as you saw, the iron mixed with clay, as the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. And just as you saw, the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay." That's a reference from Daniel 2, verses 36 to 43. So now that I've quoted Daniel 2, verses 36 to 43, and we can go to Christian scholarship, Jewish scholarship, by consensus, they agree that the first kingdom is Babylon, the second kingdom is the Medo-Persian Empire, the third kingdom is the Macedonian Empire, and the fourth kingdom is the Roman Empire. This brings us on to the final part of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which mentions the rock that will smash the statue into pieces. Quote, "While you were watching, A rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces and became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. Daniel interprets this portion of the dream as follows. Quote, in the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it itself will endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of a mountain, but not by human hands. A rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. This dream is true and its interpretation is trustworthy. Daniel chapter 2, verses 44 to 45. Now we can analyze the few verses that we just quoted out of Daniel 2. Number 1, it will emerge in the time of those kings. The coming kingdom will not appear at some distant and far off time in the future, but rather during a time when the kingdom before it is still in power. Number 2, it is said that the God of heaven will set this kingdom up, meaning the coming kingdom will be godly in character, unlike the previous idolatrous kingdoms that came before it. Number 3, it will become a huge mountain that fills the whole earth. The coming kingdom will spread throughout the entire world. And number 4, the kingdoms which preceded it will be crushed and brought to an end. The coming kingdom will emerge as the new ruling power in the world. Now the question may arise, what kingdom is this exactly? Historically, it is only Islam which fulfills all these characteristics of the rock. As I've already discussed in detail, Daniel chapter 2, the 7th century saw the emergence of Islam as a force to be reckoned with. In the words of Daniel, Islam crushed and brought to an end the world empires at the time, including the mighty Romans and Persians. The early Muslims defeated them in war, capturing many of their lands, which remain under Muslim rule till this very day, and the Muslim empire spread rapidly throughout the world and went on to become the greatest that the world has ever seen. Unlike the idolatrous empires that came before it, Muhammad and his companions were godly in character, preaching monotheism, and implemented the law of God throughout the world. The 1st century Jewish historian Josephus wrote with regards to Daniel. This is what he says, quote, the golden head was indicating both you and the Babylonian kings who were before you. But the hands and the shoulders signify that your sovereignty is to be destroyed by 2 kings. But a different one from the west wearing bronze will put down their rule, and yet another like iron will bring its power to an end. And this one will dominate everything because of the nature of iron. For it is stronger than gold and silver and bronze. And Daniel also explained to the king about the stone. Yet it seemed to me proper not to recount this, being obligated to record past events and things that have happened before, but not what is about to happen. But if anyone anxious for precision will not be deterred from being curious to the extent of even wishing to learn about the unexplained, what is to happen, let him make the efforts to read the book of Daniel. Here Josephus does not name the empires that will succeed Babylon. However, note that even when Josephus comes to the last part of the prophecy, which mentions the rock that crushes the iron and dominates the world, he cuts the retelling short. Historians understand that this is because Josephus lived during the Roman occupation of Jerusalem, and therefore he did not want to explicitly express its subversive meaning out of fear of the Roman authorities. Josephus instead instructs the reader who is curious about the identity of the rock to go read Daniel's prophecy for themselves. So Josephus conveys, however subtly, his anticipation of Rome's impending fall at the hands of God's coming kingdom. The historians Fausto Parente and Joseph Saiveris, they write the following, quote, commentators have almost universally dismissed Josephus' stated motive as a thin disguise of his unwillingness to offend the Roman readers by discussing the end of the empire. It plainly envisions the ultimate demise of the Roman Empire, and only an obtuse reader could have missed this point. Josephus will go on to say explicitly that Daniel predicted the Roman Empire, thus placing the identity of the fourth kingdom to be demolished by the stone beyond any shadow of doubt. And if he is concerned about offending Roman readers with such talk, he has already said far too much. Finally, note how Daniel relates the kingdoms to one another. He spoke of 5 successive kingdoms which would emerge one after the other, beginning with Babylon and ending with God's kingdom. Without any break in between the kingdoms, in all of history, there is no series of events which fits Daniel's sequence other than the emergence of kingdoms of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Macedonia, Rome, and finally Islam, i.e., the coming kingdom of God. Now, before we get into Daniel 7, I hope you guys understand Daniel 2. Now, Daniel 2 is connected to Daniel 7, and we're about to start Daniel 7 right now. Daniel chapter 7 informs us that during the reign of the Babylonian king Belshazzar, he experienced a terrifying dream of 4 beasts. Daniel said, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me were the 4 winds of heaven, churning up the great sea. 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. Daniel 7 verses 2 to 3. Daniel interpreted the 4 beasts to represent the emergence of 4 kings. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will arise from the earth. Daniel chapter 7 verse 17. As shall now be seen, these 4 beasts symbolize the same 4 kingdoms depicted in Nebuchadnezzar's dream about the statue which we just covered earlier on in the video. Now let's examine Daniel's description of the 4 beasts. The first beast was one like a lion, and it had wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground, so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being, and the heart of a human was given to it. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth, between its teeth. It was told, get up and eat your fill of flesh. After that, I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. After that, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. Daniel chapter 7 verses 4 to 7. We can see that Daniel described the 4th beast as a lion with the wings of an eagle, said that its wings were torn off, and that it would be given the heart of a human. Archaeological discoveries have shown that lions were used as major symbols for Babylon. Biblical prophecy also describes the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar as a lion. With regards to the second beast, Daniel describes it as a bear who is raised up on one of its sides with 3 ribs in its mouth. The mention of a bear raised on one of its sides mirrors the imagery of the ram with 1 horn longer than the other, which is discussed in Daniel chapter 8. Also recall that Daniel specifically associated the two-horned ram with the Medo-Persians. Daniel's mention of the three ribs in the bear's mouth also relates to the Medo-Persians from a historical perspective, who at the height of their power had an empire which spanned three continents, Asia, Africa, and Europe. Animal symbolism is very appropriate as the Medo-Persian Empire was fierce but expanded gradually, just like a bear, which is strong but slow in moving. Regarding the third beast, Daniel described it as a leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings, like those of a bird. This description mirrors the imagery of the goat, which is mentioned in Daniel chapter 8. Recall that Daniel specifically associated the goat with the Greeks. Like the goat's prominent horn that Daniel mentioned would split into 4 smaller horns, the mention of the leopard's 4 heads and 4 wings also historically mirrors the Macedonian Empire, which split into 4 smaller power blocks after the death of Alexander the Great. The leopard symbolism is very appropriate as it is an animal known for its speed, and just like the Macedonian Empire, whose leader, Alexander the Great, became king at the young age of 20 and went on to conquer the world remarkably quickly by the time he was 32 years of age. Now we come to the fourth and the final beast, which Daniel described as having iron teeth and 10 horns. The description mirrors the imagery of the fourth kingdom from Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2, with the iron teeth matching the statue's iron legs and the 10 horns matching the statue's 10 toes. All of these parallels between the fourth beast and the fourth kingdom indicate that both are talking about the same entity, which we talked about in this video earlier on, is the Roman Empire. We have to keep in mind that rabbis also understood this fourth beast to represent the Roman Empire. They write in the Babylonian Talmud, quote, "As it is written in the book of Daniel, with regard to the fourth empire that will rule over the whole world, and it shall devour the whole earth and shall tread it down and break it into pieces." They quote Daniel 7:23. Rabbi Yohanan says, quote, "The empire that will devour the earth is the wicked Roman Empire, whose name spread throughout the entire world." To summarize, we could see that the 4 kingdoms in Nebuchadnezzar's dream about the statue are the same 4 kingdoms symbolized as beasts in Daniel's vision: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Macedonia, and the Romans. Why does the book of Daniel depict these kingdoms in 2 different dreams and visions with different symbolisms in each? They represent different perspectives of the same prophecy. Their symbolism differs because of the recipients of the dreams. Daniel 2 is a dream from the point of view of Nebuchadnezzar, who sees the kingdoms represented as a dazzling statue made of precious metals. This could be a reflection of his disbelief as a pagan king. Daniel 7, on the other hand, is a dream from the point of view of Daniel. He sees the kingdoms represented as terrifying beasts. Daniel sees the true nature of the kingdoms, vicious and ugly. Because of his God-given spiritual insight, coming back to Daniel's vision, he goes on to describe the 10 horns of the fourth beast in more detail. Daniel says, "Then I wanted to know the meaning of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others and the most terrifying, with its iron teeth and bronze claws. That beast that had crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell. The horn that looked more imposing than the others and that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the holy people and defeating them until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in the favor of the holy people of the Most High, and the time came when they possessed the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is a fourth king who will emerge on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom, quoting Daniel 7, verses 19 to 24. Regarding the 10 horns that is mentioned in Daniel 7, there is no consensus among early Christians as to which Roman emperors constituted the 10 persecutors. When it comes to the emperor Marcus, for example, some considered him to be a friend of the church, while others considered him a foe, whereas the church father Eusebius claimed that Christians were persecuted during his reign. Others, such as Tertullian, wrote that Marcus was far from hostile to Christians and even went so far as to claim that he defended Christians from their accusers. So in summary, we could see that the early Christians tried to interpret the 10 horns mentioned in Daniel as the 10 persecutions is not without problems. So we could see that there is not enough information provided by Daniel in order for us to be able to reliably identify which of Rome's 10 rulers constitute the 10 horns. But Daniel did go on to mention another horn, a little horn that rises up from among the other 10. Daniel chapter 7 verse 8 says, "While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up from among them." Regarding the little horn, we can identify who that is thanks to the wealth of information that Daniel provided. He says, "The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the times and laws. The holy people will be delivered into his hands for a times, and half a time. But the court will sit, and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of all the kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him." Daniel 7, verses 24 to 27. Let's note the key points about the little horn being mentioned. Number 1, it represents a king who will defeat 3 other kings. Number 2, he will speak against God. Number 3, he will oppress the holy people of God. Number 4, his power will be taken away forever and handed over to... Number 4, his power will be taken away forever and handed over to God's holy people. Their kingdom will dominate all others. And number 5, God's holy people will be oppressed for a duration of time described by Daniel as a time, times, and half a time. All of these points in Daniel's prophecy about the little horn appear to refer to only one Roman ruler in history, Constantine the Great. His family background was very humble. Neither of his parents were from royal stock, and his mother, Helena, was born in the lower classes, and at the end of the 3rd century CE, the Roman Empire was a treachery. It had a form of government where power was divided among 4 individuals. And during this time, Constantine was a military commander in the Roman armed forces who served under his father, Emperor Constantine, and Constantine rose to power upon the death of his father. So Constantine is quite literally the little horn that rose up, as Daniel puts it. And soon after his ascension, a series of civil wars break out among 4 rulers, with Constantine emerging triumphant over his 3 rivals and ending up the sole ruler of the Roman Empire in 324 CE. This is a fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy that the little horn will defeat 3 other horns. Constantine inherited a Roman Empire which was religiously divided, with Christians holding various theological beliefs about the nature of Jesus. And in 325 CE, Constantine conveyed the Council of Nicaea in the hope that he could unite Christians by coming up with a universally accepted definition of the nature of Jesus. According to historians, it was actually Constantine himself who proposed one of the most controversial clauses in the Nicene Creed, known as homoousia. That is, the concept that Jesus shares the same substance as God the Father. From a Christian perspective, this council is generally considered to be a positive historic event, as it was an important step in standardizing Christian theology and a milestone in the development of the doctrine of the Trinity, in which God is said to be consistent of three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. However, from both a Jewish and Muslim perspective, Constantine's Council of Nicaea was an act of blasphemy, as it attributed supreme divinity to a human being, i.e., Jesus Christ. So Constantine's involvement in the Council of Nicaea, viewed through the purely monotheistic prism of the Old Testament, can aptly be described as a fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy that the little horn will speak against God. Some subsequent emperors and councils built upon the foundation established by Constantine at Nicaea, solidifying and further developing this notion that God is a Trinity. Any dissonance was met with increasing intolerance, with emperors such as Theodosius even going as far as to outlaw opposition to the Trinity. He decreed the following: "Let us believe in the one deity of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, in equal majesty and in a holy Trinity. We authorize the followers of this law to assume the title Catholic Christians. But as for the others, since in our judgment they are foolish madmen, we decree that they shall be branded with the ignoramus name of heretics. They will suffer in the first place the chastisement of divine condemnation, and the second, the punishment of our authority." Constantine was not just a catalyst for theological changes, he was also involved in changing ritualistic aspects of the religion of Christ. For example, he officially established a Sunday Sabbath in Roman law, which stands in opposition to Saturday Sabbath of the Old Testament. Constantine decreed, quote, "On the venerable day of the sun, Sunday, let the magistrates and people residing in cities rest, and let all workshops be closed." Hence, Constantine is again a literal fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy that the horn will change the set times and laws of God. So far, Daniel's prophecy focuses on the fourth beast, i.e., the Roman Empire, has been from the point of view of the rise to power of one of its kings, the little horn Constantine. And the rest of the prophecy goes on to describe its downfall. Recall that Daniel foretold that the little horn's court power will be taken away and given to the people of the Most High. Historically, this mirrors what exactly happened with the rise of the Muslims. In the year 324 CE, the ancient city of Byzantium was renamed New Rome. Constantine built an imperial palace and declared it the new capital of the Roman Empire. Eventually, the city would be commonly referred to as Constantinople, which means the city of Constantine. For nearly a millennium, Constantinople was the jewel of the Roman Empire, being the largest and wealthiest city in Europe. But in the year 1453 CE, the city fell to the Muslim Ottoman Empire and remains under Muslim control till present day, now being known as Istanbul. What's interesting here is that Daniel mentioned with regards to God's holy people that the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the holy people of God. The word translated here as judgment is the Aramaic word deen. This is the very same word in the Arabic that the Quran uses to describe the religion that Muhammad was tasked by God to spread. Quote, "It is he who has sent his messenger with guidance and the religion of truth to manifest it over all religions." We can safely say that historically the coming of Islam was the fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy about the defeat of the fourth beast, the Roman Empire. And it's important to note that 5th century rabbis support this interpretation, as they understood the fourth beast would be defeated by a messianic-like figure. This is what they wrote in the Babylonian Talmud, and we'll finish it with this. Quote, "Those empires subjugated the Jewish people, but we did not subjugate the Jewish people." The Gemara further asks, what is different about these, Rome and Persia, which were singled out explicitly? And what is different about those other empires that came afterward, which were not singled out and not mentioned? Which were not singled out and mentioned by name? It is because, with regard to those, Rome and Persia, their kingship extends until the coming of the Messiah. To summarize Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, the prophecy of the four beasts in Daniel chapter 7 has been analyzed in detail. Careful exploration showcases that the four beasts represent the same four kingdoms from Nebuchadnezzar's dream about the statue in Daniel chapter 2. We have also seen that the kingdom of God, which is set to save the holy people from oppression of the fourth beast, is the same kingdom symbolized as the divine rock, which was foretold to smash the statue to pieces in Daniel chapter 2. Upon analyzing Daniel's sequence of these kingdoms and correlating them with real-world events, we must conclude that in all of history, these prophecies can refer to none other than the advent of Muhammad's prophethood and the rise of Islam as a world power. And with that, we can conclude Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. And this is an open challenge to any Christian listening or watching. I would like to formally challenge any of you on a formal debate regarding Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. To any Muslim watching, there is so much detail, so much information that I skipped over this video for the sake of time. If you want to learn more about this prophecy in Daniel 2 and in Daniel 7, good news. We have a Discord server where we do a weekly session on certain topics. For example, this week, the topic will be Daniel chapter 2. For the entire week, that is all we speak about. That is all we ask about. That is all we talk about. You will have direct access to Central Dawah. You will have one-on-one private access to me as well. You can join our server by clicking the link in my bio that's in my TikTok, or you can click the link that's in my community posts on YouTube. It's $14.99 a month, but there are so many perks that come with it. If you are interested in joining our community, click the link and join up now. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. Barakallah fiqh. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.